Okay, ladies and gentlemen, because we have so many students that are missing for various reasons at this point, I've decided to go back and do video tutorials for Photoshops 1, 2, and 3, and whatever other Photoshops I don't already have a video tutorial for, so that students can get caught up if they have missed. This will be Photoshop 1. The first thing you need to do is go into Google Classroom, find the assignment Photoshop 1, and the base image for students that I've given you, and download it. So to do that, we need to click on the base image. We need to click on the three dots and go to open a new window. And from there, you should be able to download the image. I'm just going to do it simply to my downloads. Hopefully you have the setting that asks you where to download. If you don't, I will show you that in a second. But I'm just going to download base image for students into my downloads. If you're working on a Chromebook, it should save this file to your little hard drive on your Chromebook. So I click save and it says base image right here. If you don't have the setting that asks you where to save, you need to go to your Chrome settings, which is these three dots up here. Settings. Down at the very bottom, you have an advanced button. Click on that to show downloads. Ask where to save each file before downloading. That should be clicked on to blue, and then you should just be able to close that tab and be able to download to wherever you tell your Chromebook or Chrome browser to save your image. From there, you need to launch Photopea. I already have it open on a tab, but it's photopea.com. It's just like Photoshop. And you need to open the base image for students. So to do that, you can click on Open from Computer or go to File, Open, and go find that file that you had just downloaded. I know mine's in Downloads. Here it is, base image for students. I open that file. So for Photoshop 1, all I really want you to do is demonstrate that you understand layers a little bit, how to paint on layers, how to hide and show layers, and we're going to do a little bit of an effect just to add some intrigue to it, and we're also going to do a blend mode again to add a little bit of intrigue and as an introduction to some cool things that we can do in Photopea. So the first thing I want you to do is to duplicate this layer. There are multiple ways of doing that. My favorite way to duplicate a layer is to drag it into the garbage can down at the bottom right of your layers. And not garbage can, excuse me, that would be to delete it. I want to duplicate it, so I drag it into my Add New Layer window, and I'm going to do it twice to get 3 new layers. So I have 3 layers here now, and if you hide and show each one, you'll see that nothing happens because it's just pixels on top of pixels. The next thing I want you to do is create a new empty layer by clicking on Layer 1 and going to Empty Layer. And now I have a blank layer here that I can play with. All I want you to do on this layer is to paint on it. And to do that, I'm going to get my paintbrush. I'm going to right-click on my canvas. And it just froze on me. So there it is. And I can see the size of my brush. I'm going to change it to around 60. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to click out into the void. And I'm going to change my foreground color to red. So I move this slider all the way up to red, and I click inside of this color picker to select that color and click OK. Now I can freely paint whatever I want on this layer. Now understand, because we had a blank layer, that is the only thing on that layer. If I show the top layer, again, it will cover up, because this is stacked upon this, which is stacked upon this, which is stacked upon that. That's how these layers work. And then I'm going to add another blank layer on top of that by clicking on the new layer icon at the bottom right. I'm going to get a different color. In this case, I might choose something like cyan. I might change my brush to a little bit bigger, and I want to set the hardness of the brush to something that is much smaller, which will soften the edges. So now if I paint on top, you can see that the edges of my brush are very soft. So that's an introduction to the brush tool. And the last couple of things I want you to do is, first of all, with this layer, I want you to add an effect by clicking on the EFF button and go to Bevel and Emboss. And you'll see when I add a Bevel and Emboss, if I increase the depth, maybe the size a little bit, you can see that it starts looking like it's a almost like a 3D object, which adds highlights. You can change the angle of the lighting to fix that a little bit, or to change it, and just play with that for a second. Start learning some of the terminology and click OK. And then the last thing we're going to do is we are going to add a blend mode. So for the layer I have selected, which is my cyan layer that's all by itself, I have the effect on it. I'm going to change the blend mode, which is normal for now, but if I start playing with some of these different options as I move down, you might get something interesting. So I'm going to leave it at screen, and I want you to submit this PSD. So the last thing we're going to do is go to File, Save as PSD, navigate to where you want to save it. Hopefully you have a folder that you can keep things organized in, and I'm just going to again save it into my downloads, and I'm going to name this correctly using my naming convention. Now the naming convention is something that you need to learn. It's pretty standard, and it's a formula based naming convention. The first part is the period, so I'm going to say this is period 2. I'm going to put my last name. In your case, you should put your last name, then my first initial with an underscore, everything lowercase, everything separated by an underscore. So I have the period, I have the name, and then I have the project name, which is Photoshop underscore 01. Always put a 0 in front of a single digit. Save. Now that saves all of our layers. That's the power of the PSD, and you need to submit that file to get credit for Photoshop 1.